A 31-year-old man has died this Friday at the village neighborhood in the economic capital Douala following a road accident. A truck crushed their bike at the village neighborhood. The war against Boko Haram has taken a different dimension, and the media is now seen as a vital tool to bring Abubakar Shekau to surrender. Yaoundé and Jamena have signed a convention, a communication strategy to fight Boko Haram. Those are the top stories. Thanks for joining us in this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinox Television. We begin rather on a sad note. A passenger on a bike dies on the spot, and the bike rider recorded serious injuries on the legs. Those were the aftermath of a road accident at Texaco Axelu village neighborhood here in the economic capital. Witnesses say the motorbike rider attempted to overtake a truck transporting sand, but made a poor negotiation and was crushed by the said truck. The passenger, Mohammed Yafa, born in 1984, died on the spot with his part of his brains destroyed. His brother, who was reached by phone, was inconsolable in that road accident. The bike rider was transported to a nearby hospital, and security forces arrived at the scene to take stock of the damages recorded. Meantime, the divisional officer for the Douala 3 municipality has advocated for dialogue between members of the Yambong family and tenants over a land dispute at the Ngodi Bakoko neighborhood. In that municipality, some individuals who had bought land from the Yamba family are being asked to liberate the area on grounds that they bought the land very cheap. The owners have also stood up against the family, saying they had spent much money to reclaim the land, which was a swampy area, and this quarrel resulted to exchange of blows some few months ago, with individuals sustaining injuries. The problem seems not to have gotten a solution yet, as both parties are still at daggers drawn, and this solicited the intervention of the divisional officer for Douala 3 to help seek lasting solutions as far as that land problem is concerned. And away from that now, we remain in the economic capital, Douala. We take you now to the famous Ndokoti roundabout, where the roundabout has once again been cleared of traders occupying the road pavement. The repressive measure was taken Wednesday by elements of the municipal police, as well as the divisional officer for Douala 3. This follows the expiration of the February 28th deadline given by the administrative authorities for traders to liberate that area. Jacques Kwekinge.
It was a real tug of war between traders and elements of the Douala City Council Municipal Police Wednesday at the Ndokoti roundabout. This follows the February 28th deadline that had been given to traders occupying the road pavements to liberate the area. It was therefore an unannounced repressive measure undertaken by the authorities of the Douala City Council under the supervision of the DO for Douala 3 Municipality, Njoya Zakari. This was just a continuation for the fight against urban disorder put up by the administrative and municipal authorities of Vuri Division a few months ago, which seeks at clearing public places being occupied by traders. Ndokoti was one of the stops. Here, goods of traders displayed along the roads were seized by elements of the municipal police, some of which the traders were not willing to let go. Even stores were dismantled, a repressive measure which has somehow cleared Ndokoti of the numerous traders who used to crowd the road pavement, thereby making circulation of pedestrians and cars very difficult. It should be recalled that this is not the first time such cleanup campaign is being carried out around the Ndokoti roundabout. But for how long will this order imposed on Ndokoti last? It is just a matter of wait and see.
A matter of time. Yaoundé and Jamena will now talk security news in this edition of the newscast. Have harmonized communication strategies to fight against Boko Haram. This is the major fallout of the visit of Chadian Communication Minister to Cameroon. Roland Akon read through and now reports.
Voilà, vous voyez cet enfant, ce petit enfant là. Moi je sais pas si tout le monde voit. Voilà, ça c'est un Boko Haram qu'on a arrêté. Il doit avoir quel âge? 8 ans.
This little boy of about 8 or 9 has been trained by Boko Haram as a suicide bomber. He explodes to death Whoever gives him water to drink when he comes pretending to be thirsty.
Et c'est ça les armées de Boko Haram.
Boko Haram has deceived him that he will see the face of God when he dies by carrying out such hideous acts.
Le petit s'occupe de bétail de Boko Haram.
This young boy is Boko Haram's Minister of Livestock and Animal Husbandry. He is in charge of all the animals stolen or seized by Boko Haram.
Donc ils arrachent le bétail des gens.
Boko Haram has deceived him that he will be Minister of Livestock in the jihadi state to be created by Boko Haram. These are all extremely sophisticated recruitment propaganda machinery prolific recruiters of Boko Haram are using to deceive and recruit young people. The fight against the jihadist group has entered high gear, with the extremists losing enormous war equipment and other materials to soldiers of the joint coalition.
Voilà, ça c'est un de leurs véhicules qui est en bon état, celui-là, qui est récupéré en bon état.
Signpost of the group shows how far they have been conquered and captured in their hinterlands by the coalition forces. On a mission in Yaoundé this week, the Chadian Minister of Communication is seeking for perfect coordination in communication with his Cameroonian counterpart in the fight against Boko Haram.
For this aim, a strategic document for a harmonized communication between Chad and Cameroon and regarding the commitment of our defense and security forces on the war front has been elaborated and adopted by both delegations.
President David of Chad, said to be commanding the coalition, is calling on Shekahu, the leader of Boko Haram, to resign as the news is tightening on him.
And of course, just to note at the end of that report that Chadian President Idriss Déby Itno was speaking Wednesday in Germany, revealing that he knows the whereabouts of Abubakar Shekau. And during the press conference, Idriss Déby and Muhammadu Issoufou, the president of Niger, reassured that the victory against Boko Haram will be theirs. That's Nigeria, Cameroon, Niger, and equally Chad. And still talking about Boko Haram, the population of the Makenene subdivision in the west region of Cameroon have been urged to denounce all suspected acts of terrorism in their area. The call was made during the collective walk in support of Cameroonian armies fighting against Boko Haram in the far north region of Cameroon. Veronica Aji tells us more.
The students, men and women, came from all three villages of the Makenene subdivision. They all decided to become one voice.
We say no to them. We don't need them in our country.
A collective walk by the people of Makenene to show their support to the Cameroon army. As they all assembled, they were told to avoid disunity but rather be one another's keeper. In order to be of help in the fight against Boko Haram, the inhabitants were called upon to denounce any suspected terrorist actions in the locality. Placards raised up in the air clearly defined their position. They chanted as they marched past by. Boko Haram would not attain its objective through the population of Makenene.
And let's now come back to the second segment of this newscast coming right ahead after this transitional imperative. Barely 3 days to the 30th International Women's Day that will be coming up on the 8th of March. And today we are having a feminist, somebody who fights and is still fighting for gender equality in Cameroon. We are receiving Mrs. Tamata Akom-Fontem, who is equally the president of the Proxy Foundation. Good evening and thanks for joining us.
Good evening, Hansen. Good evening, televiewers.
What do you do in your NGO when you talk about Proxy Foundation? What is it all about, defending the rights of women, gender equality?
Yes, Proxy Foundation is out to fight for the rights of women and the girl child, because we have realized that women have been subjected to too many forms of discrimination, violence, and even torture. We've also realized that the woman and the girl child, because they have not been given the rights that they are required, they don't even have a say. They just fall prey to certain circumstances. We have, for example, in Proxy Foundation, a mission to educate, to sensitize the woman and the girl child on the dangers of certain practices like female genital mutilation, breast ironing, and child marriages. These are traditional practices whose consequences have always been ignored. And today we are opening up to the woman and to the society, telling them of the dangers of these practices and that they must not accept. They are sensitized and educated that there are consequences to this, and they must not accept to go through this.
Now let's go chronologically. Early marriages. Tell us more about early marriages in Cameroon.
Yes, you realize we have regions in Cameroon where this is mostly practiced. We have, for example, the far north, where a child goes into marriage at the age of 8. You find a man of 45 or even 50 getting married to a child of 8 years, and we think it is not proper. The child goes into marriage first, not healthy enough for marriage, not healthy to start a pregnancy. It affects her physically, affects her mental health, psychologically. But because it is her tradition, and because she has no say, she doesn't have a voice, she has to obey her parents. So Proxy Foundation is there to educate them, to tell them that you have a right to say no, because you have a right to life. You have a right to say no to these practices. And there are organizations, there are associations that will protect them, like Proxy Foundation.
Such as, without mentioning your group, the NGO, we know it's an NGO, yes. Without mentioning to go out of the line of publicity, we know that it is a foundation that is equally looking at female genital mutilation. We're in the context of the celebration of Women's Day. Can you tell us more about female genital mutilation in Cameroon?
Yes, I will put it in a way that a layman will understand. So female genital mutilation is any operation done on the female genitalia for non-medical reasons. Whether you are stitching, cutting, cauterizing, scraping, anything you do to the female genital organ, that is not for medical reasons, is female genital mutilation. You find people ringing the clitoris, you find women tattooing. That's why the United Nations has come up with 4 types.
Okay.
So you have things like clitoridectomy, you have excision, you have like what we have here in Cameroon in the ejagams. They just touch on the clitoris and the cat. Okay. Then you have what we call infibulation. That is the most dreaded even.
And what are the dangers of this female genital mutilation on the health of the individual?
Oh, the dangers are enormous. Firstly, it leads to death, because if these are practices that are done without, let me talk about female genital mutilation, for example. There is no anesthesia given, okay? No psychotherapy. So there is no, you see, they use herbs and other practices. After cutting, what they do is they don't care about the hygienic nature of what they put there. They take the girl child because they want her to get involved in a member of a particular dance group, what they call Morning Kim, as is the practice in with the ejagams. They cut her clitoris. They keep her in a room, what they call a fattening room, where she's fed, only to be able to prepare her to come out and dance the Morning Kim dance. So like the word Morning Kim is a circumcised woman. Okay. So when you hear the Morning Kim group of the Manyu people, that is what it is about. Now
tell us about breast ironing. After that, we shall be looking globally on the disadvantages as well as your fight towards ending this. Tell us more about breast ironing.
Yes. Breast ironing is when, you know, there are girls who begin to develop breasts very early, some even at the age of 7, 8. And when the parents look at that, they get scared. They are afraid of sexual harassment. They have a feeling that if this child is weak, they are afraid of rape. because they know exactly what the society is about. They are afraid of unwanted pregnancies. So what they do is they use a hot pistol or a stone to press the breast, just to flatten it. In some societies, it is called breast flattening.
Are you a living witness today, or you've witnessed some of maybe your close ones today?
I am very sorry to say this. My first daughter had to go through this by my aunt. I bet it is because I was not aware of it. And now I am starting to say that there are consequences to this. After this, a child may develop cancer. The breast may never grow. The breast may grow and be deformed. Or sometimes even, you may find the child may complain of severe pains. And maybe, if it depends on the intensity, it can even lead to death.
Oh, now, within the context of Women's Day celebration, what are you doing? What are you denouncing, for this gender equality, for the betterment of the Cameroonian woman?
Okay.
Because these girls, for sure, they will become women tomorrow.
For sure. What are we celebrating? This year, the theme is Make It Happen. We are not only celebrating the achievements of women, we are pointing out also these problems of women. We are educating the population on the dangers of these traditional practices also, and making the women aware, so that they don't allow their children to go through this. This day is a day when, it's not a day where women go to drink. Women will sit and reflect also on their struggles, their achievements, and what they can do to gain greater equality.
So it's a day for reflection, not celebration?
It is not only a day for reflection, but also a day for celebration. They are celebrating their achievements. They're also reflecting on their problems, their plight. They have rights. They have fundamental human rights. They are not fighting with the men for rights. They have basic human rights. They are just claiming their rights, because the woman before now could not talk, was only seen and not heard. But today's woman says no. Enough is enough.
Now, what influence do you have in the society? What influence do you have? Can your findings on breast ironing, female genital mutilation, as well as early marriages be proposed to the government? And can there be a follow-up and implementation of your recommendations?
Of course. Unfortunately for us, there are no laws that punish people who practice female genital mutilation, breast ironing, and child marriages. But we are talking. What we are saying today, tomorrow will go down into laws. But they are supporting laws. We have supporting laws that can be used to arrest and even imprison people responsible for this. And it is only when a child is educated or a woman is educated, then will she know that she has a right to life. She has a right to health. And anything that comes to tamper on her health is a call for concern. She will not give up her child for her breast to be ironed. She will not give away her child at the age of 8 to an old man.
So your first solution is education?
Education, sensitization. They are very important. We have to create awareness. When they are educated, they will understand that what they are doing is wrong. Because there are no benefits to this. So
have your recommendations been taken into in consideration by the government? Do you work alongside the government?
Yes, of course. We are working.
Tell us more your cooperation. How
we are working with other associations and organizations and foundations. We are trying to push the government to do this, to put a law that will punish perpetrators of this practice, or those who practice this. Let them be brought to book. Let them face the consequences of their actions. let them put a stop to this. And it is only by having those laws that directly punish them that they will understand that if, say for example, let's say for example, there's a law that says anyone found practicing female genital mutilation will be arrested and sentenced to maybe 25 years of imprisonment. They are already aware that we are fighting for a law that will punish them, and that is why it has become a taboo topic. To investigate it, it's not even easy. When you go down to the villages, they don't want to talk. They tell you, no, it is over. We don't do it here. Yes, it is true, we did it, but we are no longer doing it. But I know that behind they are doing it.
Now, 20 years after the Beijing conference, something I always like to ask women, what has become of the Cameroonian woman 20 years after the Beijing conference and the famous dictum, what a man can do, a woman can do even more better. What has become of the Cameroonian woman? Well, gender equality moving on?
I think the woman is striving for greater equality. If you look around, you will realize that the woman of yesterday is no longer the woman of today. The woman has seen the need to fight for her rights, to fight for equality. And that's why we keep saying we are not fighting with the men. We are just claiming our rights, what are ours. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Mrs. Tamata Akumfontem.
Thank you.
President of Proxy Foundation, an NGO that fight for gender equality in Cameroon. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us in this edition, televiewers, the last but one edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinox Television for the week. Good night.